Suomi Film is a Finnish film company. It was founded in 1919 by Erkki Karu, and it was a very small company, and they had difficulties in the beginning, and then they could survive, and then there was the depression, the consequences of depression, and they could turn to film with sound and managed to do it. And in the 1930s the company expanded, so until 1939 it looked like there were no more worries with the money, and they could go on. And then they had this big opportunity because the Olympics of 1940 should have been in Helsinki, and they got a contract to film the Olympics. But then came the Winter War in 1939. Stalin attacked Finland, and of course the cinematographers went to film a documentary from the war. Then the continuation war began in the summer of 1941, and so people were hungry for films, and it was very affordable to make films, so they were made, and Suomi Film had very good connections to Germany, so they brought to Finland German films for people to watch. And then after the war it was of course a problem that they had these good connections with Germans, because the German films were forbidden to screen from the end of 1945 to the end of 1947, and also they brought all their raw film from Germany, so they could not bring it from there anymore, so there were difficulties in making films. But then there was this Sov Sport Film came from the Soviet Union, and they based their office in Helsinki, and they also had several cinemas in Helsinki from 1946 on, and they were interested to make co-work with Finnish companies, and they were very interested with this Suomi Film. And Risto Orko, the manager of Suomi Film, he saw it as an opportunity. And Risto Orko was an interesting person. It was basically his company. He was from 1933 he was the main producer in Suomi Film. By 1945 he owned some 70% of the company. Orko, I think he knew Ptushko because he was already in 1935 in the first Moscow Film Festival, and there was this Ptushko Novy Gulliver film. It was a sensation that time. And then after the war Ptushko made this stone flower, Kamenný Cvetok. It was filmed on Agfa color film that was brought from Germany. It was trophy from Germany, and it actually won in Cannes Film Festival 1946. It won the prize for the best use of color. This Kamenný Cvetok, the stone flower, it was very beautiful film, and because it was in color and it was this fairy tale film, it was very, very popular in Finland. So Ptushko was a known name here. Risto Orko was he was a director also. He directed films during the 1930s and 1940s, and but he concentrated on making business, and he didn't direct until in the end of 1970s, when there was made the last ever feature film made by Suomi Film, and it was again a co-production with the Soviet Union. Sov Sport Film, it was Soviet monopoly of distributing films, and it worked all over the world. They had their people in over 50 countries all over the world. The most important countries, at least in Europe, were France and Italy. Finland was special because it could be sort of shop window to Europe. Sov Sport Film could show in Finland, screen in Finland films and show them to the people of the embassies, because in Helsinki there are embassy of every country, and the people from embassies were invited to these special screenings and special parties. And of course, it was also because Finland was a Western land. It was kind of easy type of Western land, because people were like bourgeois. During the 50s, they started to print information on every film and give it to press, and they invited the people from press and film industry and movie makers to, of course, the Moscow festivals, Karlovy Vary festivals, and every kind of happenings, and to show them Soviet films, to learn them about, so they could learn about Soviet films and how was the movie industry working in the Soviet Union, because it was very much different than in Finland. And so Sov Sport Film could use this press of Finland and the audience of Finland to get to know what kind of films the Western people liked. And I think they will also use this, what was published in the papers. They use it when they were marketing the films in other countries. The biggest field that Sov Sport Film had in control was to rent and give for free films for film clubs, and especially through Finland-Soviet Union Association. It was a very big organization through Finland that was showing Soviet cinema all around. And what was the idea of Sov Sport Film? It was, of course, to bring Soviet culture all around the world, to bring it to people, to make people appreciate Soviet culture and to understand and support Soviet ideas, the Soviet state. It was like in 1949 when Sov Sport Film had this meeting in Moscow, and they decided to make more co-work with Finns, and it was especially with Suomi Filmi that was important. So in the very beginning of the 1950s, a feature film from Suomi Filmi was sold to Sov Sport Film, and they distributed it in the Soviet Union in the 1950s. Then there were all kind of co-work, and part of it were these Sov-color films. So Sov Sport Film gave Suomi Filmi Sov-color film, and they wanted that Valentin Vaala directed those films. And Valentin Vaala was born Ivanov. He was from Russian background, but a Finnish director. And the Sov-color films that he directed were sold to Sov Sport Film, and they distributed it in the Soviet Union in the end of the 1950s. And then there was these Finnish Soviet film weeks. They were, first time it was organized, it was 1956. There was this suggestion from the Soviet side that if Suomi Filmi could make a co-production film based on Kalevala. And all the Finns were like, wow, this was some suggestion, because Kalevala is the very symbol of Finnish independence. And eventually it was Suomi Filmi and Risto Orko who decided that yes, we are going to make this film with the Soviet Union, because it's politically so important. And it was Khrushchevian time, and the film is about Khrushchev political idea, or originally is Lenin's idea about peaceful coexistence, meaning that between socialism and capitalism there has to be trade and culture and change, so they can live side by side until the world understands that the only way to live is communism. So Sampo film is made to support this idea, and it was launched at the same time with the Moscow Film Festival in 1959, and also these other films from Finland were shown in the Soviet Union during that time. So it was the first audience was, of course, the Soviet audience. To show it was important to show the Soviet audience that Finland is this partner of us, and Finland is important. And also there are these tendencies about the meaning of Sampo, because if you look this from the Finnish side, Finns think that something is wrong with this Kalevala film, because there is no this Finnish spirit of Kalevala that there should be. But if you watch it from the Soviet side, it's actually combines the Finnish idea of Kalevala and the Soviet Karelian idea of Kalevala, because in Finland, especially during the 1930s and 1940s, Sampo even was the symbol of National Socialism. So it was important to make this film to sort of make it clear that Finns are no more for the Nazis, but Finns are for the new idea of Sampo, this Karelian idea of Sampo as Sampo of communism, because these new runes that Karelians wrote, Sampo runes in the style of Kalevala, they were telling stories about Stalin and stories about Lenin and the Sampo of communism. And there we come to a person, I think, who is in the very behind of this film. Otto Ville Kuusinen was a Finnish socialist in the beginning. Later he thought that communism is the answer to everything. But he was born in Finland, and he was a very educated man, and also he was a lover of poetry and music. His social conscience sort of woke up during the first attempt of revolution in 1905, and he knew everything about communism that was written. He especially well he knew the writings of Lenin, and he tried to turn Finland into a socialist state. He was the head of the Finnish Social Democratic Party, and Finland gained independence after the October Revolution 1917, the very last day of the year 1917, but then broke the Finnish Civil War, and Otto Ville Kuusinen had to flee from Finland because Finnish whites, they got help from Germany, and because they wanted just to get rid of these communists, and because the Reds were defeated during this civil war, Otto Ville Kuusinen and many other Reds were forced. They had to leave Finland, and Otto Ville Kuusinen escaped to Moscow, and he founded the Communist Party of Finland, but he was not allowed to come to Finland because he was persona non grata in Finland, and that is why he was not mentioned usually. Maybe in some northern newspapers, when they wrote about this Kalevala film, there were some hints about Otto Ville Kuusinen, that maybe this Kalevala film is about his idea of Kalevala, but I think maybe the President Kekkonen wrote to that paper that you shouldn't talk about Kuusinen with this thing. Well, Kuusinen was a very important person, and Lenin himself advised that this man should sit in Comintern, and Kuusinen was the Comintern secretary for many years. And the thing that Finns could never forgive Kuusinen is because during the Winter War in 1939, it was Stalin's idea that when the Finland is conquered, the democratic Soviet Finland, and that and Karelia would be combined to one state, and Otto Ville Kuusinen would be the head of that state. So it was a kind of puppet government, but of course Finland was never conquered, and after that Kuusinen was appointed to the head of Karelian Finnish. I have to check it out. These are important and very difficult things. It's Karelo-Finnish Socialist Republic, and it existed from 1940 to 1946. And during this time, Otto Ville Kuusinen used very much Kalevala to propagate this idea of Karelia and Karelia and Finland together. And he even wrote a play named Sampo. It was found in his archive, and I think it was never staged, but when his play is about the same thing with the film, so it has to be something to do with it. And I found his name in the papers in the archive. He is recommended as a specialist on this film. And what's more important is that Holger Harrivirta, who was the Finnish director or the second director of the Sampo film, he mentions Otto Ville Kuusinen in his memoirs some 2 or 3 times that, oh, now I see, because Ptushko has been negotiating with Otto Ville Kuusinen and is very pleased to have Kuusinen's advice about this thing. And Kuusinen was very important in the Soviet Union during the 1950s, and he was the man who sort of re-evaluated the writings of Lenin. He died in 1964, May, and he is the only Finn that was ever buried in the Kremlin wall, so that tells us something.